What's going on, y'all? My name's Anthony and welcome to Aberrant Garage. In this episode, as Santa Barbara County decided to start relieving restrictions on outdoor activities, my brother, my cousin, and my cousin's buddy decided to jump in our trucks with our families and roll out to West Camino Cielo to see how this big girl does out on the trail. After driving for about an hour, we found the start of the trail and decided it was a good time for lunch since we got a pretty late start. My cousin Taylor has this dark gray Tacoma with a leveling kit. Anthony Laura's white Tacoma was the most modified rig of the day, sporting Icon upper control arms, Kings on all four corners, and some rock sliders. My brother Harrison also brought out his leveled TRD 4x4 Sport Tacoma. His wife and son were chilling in the cab. We also had our kids out with us. Say hi to Tanner, my wife Jenny, and there's Carter in the back of my Ram, and Rhett and Easton are also in the cab. After lunch, we all piled back into the trucks, and Anthony Lara took the lead down the trail since he'd been here before. I followed second, Harrison was behind me, and Taylor took the tail gunner position as we set out on this dusty road, mostly dirt with a little bit of rocks, and just kind of enjoyed the scenery. One of the best parts about this trail is the panoramic views that you get, not only of the Pacific Ocean and the hills that surround it, but you also get an opportunity to see how life bounces back post Southern California wildfires. This region has been known for some massive fires over the years, and to see everything coming back and flourishing is simply amazing. One of my favorite aspects of the day was the fact that I got to have my family along with me. My wife was helping with camera duties, Carter's supposedly helping edit videos in the front seat, and Tanner is doing a great job helping with his younger brothers in the back seat. Tanner, Rhett, and Easton all say hi. Since Carter got to sit up front, we gave him the task of helping us find good spots to grab some footage for the day. After watching this section ahead, he thought this would be a good spot for Mom to jump out and grab some footage of all the trucks passing by. One thing that became very clear very quickly was the fact that taking a 3/4 ton truck running full air pressure down this road was not going to make for the most comfortable ride throughout the day. And while the Toyota guys weighed about half what I did, they were all wishing that they could have aired down their tires for a much more comfortable ride as well. Now, being as how we've only had this truck for a few weeks, I was a little concerned about getting a bunch of pinstriping on my new truck, and looking at the brush as we were going down this section getting a little narrow, I was a little concerned about what may come. Fortunately, it didn't come to pass that was too much of a concern, although in a little while we did have a few larger and more solid objects to be a little concerned about. It was at this point that things got a little more interesting as Anthony started to pull his Tacoma off to the side of the trail. What we didn't realize was just beyond the rock pile that we were coming up to, there was a gentleman on a dual sport motorcycle going the opposite way on the trail. What we weren't exactly sure of is how we were going to make room for this gentleman to get around us. Anthony stopped at the top of the rock pile and motioned for the gentleman to try and come past us on his bike, which my wife and I were a little concerned about. There wasn't a whole lot of room there and it was pretty rocky. We weren't sure how that was going to be safely done. And as you'll see, the motorcycle rider decided to take a slightly different route.
Well, this is...
It quickly became evident that the best way for us to proceed would be for Anthony to pull his truck ahead and clear a path for the dual sport rider to make a line up the obstacle to go past us. Once Anthony's truck was out of the way, I jumped out to help the rider get his bike off the rocks and into a better position and get him going down the trail. Getting that bike back on the trail was a little more work than I had anticipated, but it didn't take us long to get him in a position to get headed up the obstacle. And once he was in position, I ran back to the truck. That way I was out of his path and he could proceed on. I've always understood West Camino to be a nice ride for dual sport riders. Watching him try to get up this obstacle, I was questioning that a little bit, but was rest assured by my brother that it actually is a really nice ride when you don't have a bunch of big clunky trucks in the way.
Okay.
Once the dual sport rider was past our truck, it was our turn to carry on.
I'm excited about that.
Now what you couldn't really see with this obstacle is on the left hand side there was a little bit of a V-notch in the rocks, and while Anthony's truck was narrow enough to make it to the side of this, mine definitely wasn't. Fortunately, Anthony recognized this fact and knew that this was our first trip out in this truck, and we weren't exactly familiar with how wide the truck is and the exact tire placement yet. He jumped out and ran back to give us a couple of spotting pointers to make sure we didn't wind up in a sticky situation coming down the hill. After making it down that little obstacle, the next thing that we had to contend with was a rather large rock on the right-hand side of the road. I have to applaud my wife's vote of confidence here.
I don't think you're gonna fit. Oh,
and even though she was less than enthused about what we had before us, with just a little bit of finesse and some good spotting by Anthony, we made it through without a scratch.
Okay, you have a little bit of room. You're good. Just be careful on the back. Turn. Yeah, okay. You're good. You passed. Woo. Cleared. Oh my god.
That one was a little narrow. I was scared in my truck. I was like, oh, I better.
I really enjoyed this section of trail because it gave each one of us an opportunity to run completely different lines through this rut. Now obviously I had to take a substantially different line than the Toyota guys did, being as how they are quite smaller, but it was interesting to see how even though they all had similar trucks, they all took quite different lines through this section. Watching Harrison go through this section looks like he picked a relatively conservative line and mostly followed the same path that I did. But wait until Taylor comes through. It became obvious that he wanted to have a little bit more of an extreme time, and I'm not sure that it initially worked out the way he thought.
Do it again.
Regardless of what he initially thought, it was still a lot of fun anyhow. Immediately following that rutted section was this section here with some pretty big rocks on opposing sides of the trail. The first rock was on the left side, the second on the right side, and there was a third on the left. This gave me an opportunity to really show the Toyota guys that you don't have to be narrow and short wheelbase to be able to get out on the trail and have a bunch of fun. They all had their jaws hanging open, watching this truck thread the needle through all of these rocks, and it was really fun showing them that they're not the only ones that can have a good time too. A remarkable thing about West Camino Cielo is it runs along the Santa Barbara Front Range, and this whole area was part of the Whittier fire back in July of 2017. And as you can see with all these trees around us, the evidence of that fire is still there. But what's remarkable is how well this area has bounced back from that fire and regrown all of the vegetation between here and all the way to Lake Kachuma. As we left the grove of burned trees from the fire, we started to climb this hill that would lead us to the top of one of the peaks of the range and give us an opportunity to get out of the truck and stretch our legs for a little while. As happy as we were to get out of the truck and stretch our legs for a minute, the kids were even happier as they had been crammed in the back seat, bouncing down this seemingly endless long road. We were happy to be able to show them an overhead view of Lake Kachuma as we stood out on top of the peak. And here's Jenny and Easton. Watching Carter and Rhett run around trying to pick up sticks to draw on the sand gave us a good opportunity to give a reminder about certain types of wildlife.
You gotta be careful of snakes, because rattlesnakes live up here.
And whether it's drawing in the sand with a stick or running off to explore some new object, one thing that Jenny and I love is watching our boys' sense of adventure in a new place. We had so much fun hanging out in this area that we lost track of time, and unfortunately we had to tear the boys away because they wanted to continue exploring.
Carter!
In the process, we also realized that we had run out of battery power in the GoPro, and therefore were unable to continue filming for the rest of the trip. With that being said, that's just another reason to go back to West Camino Cielo. maybe with the Suburban this time, and catch some footage of this trail so we can share the last half. Well, thanks for following along on this adventure with Aberrant Garage. If you like what you're seeing, please help support the channel. We're starting to put together a merch store. For that, please check out the link below.
And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and click the notification bell for more. We can't wait to see you again.
Bye!